and let's finish this again. Hi, everybody.
Here we are, chewing tobacco.
We're doing some dip. If you ever done dip where you put the tobacco in between your gum and your lip, and that's called dip. And then you spit it out like this.
In the spittoon.
In the spittoon. Woo!
Well, I got to tell you, ACB.
ACB, duh. Aurora,
you know
score
what?
of the day.
I want to learn my ABCs, but you've learned your ACBs.
What about that Canopy? Canopy's on fire, up $4 today.
Hey, and just to make a point, you know, you see no action, and all of a sudden action.
Action Jackson. What about MedMen?
What about MedMen? What? I don't know.
You didn't hear?
No.
They're being sued by former board members for fiduciary irresponsibility.
Improprieties?
Improprieties of the highest order.
Jesus.
I know.
Say it ain't so.
It's true. It's true.
Should I sell my position?
Look at this. Let me read this out loud. It's going to be in the news anyways, but one of MedMen's largest outside shareholders and former board member, the affiliate of the Inception Company, sues MedMen for alleged breaches of fiduciary duty. Now, the point I would like to make about this press release is, you know, Adam Bierman, not exactly what would be categorized as a nice guy by anybody except, well, anybody. This is the thing with these super voting structures, is it doesn't necessarily mean that it's never going to be a winner. What it demonstrates from the outset is a general disregard for the integrity of the shareholder by saying, you can't have a vote, we need to outvote you because you don't know, we know better. And this is exactly the kind of thing that kind of mentality on the part of management results in. It's like his own board members, his founding shareholders, are suing him for breach of fiduciary duty. Now, granted, nothing's been proven in a court of law.
He thinks he's special.
Well, exactly. But so this is why the social contract, as it pertains to publicly traded companies, is you take the public's money, the public gets a vote for every share that they buy. And yeah, you can easily overwhelm the voting public by owning the majority of the stock. That makes sense because then you've put in more money than anybody. But if you put in no money and you've got all the votes,
you have no skin in the game.
You have no skin in the game. Furthermore, I'd say you're incentivized to commit larceny and fiduciary irresponsibility against your shareholders.
Larceny.
Anyways, that's my little rant for the afternoon.
You know what? It's not getting pounded, but it's
I'm gonna pound it. Pow, pow.
Okay.
Anyways, we got some really big stuff happening today, and no idea what it is, though. Let's see. Oh, headline news at 3:05. Ben Smith is going to be here for a little chit-chat at 3:15. Colin Fisher from StableView Asset Management is going to be here to talk about the technological landscape in Canada and some of the better names in that sort of realm.
Right.
Then Vikas Ranjan is going to be here at your behest.
I interviewed him.
To talk about Mint Corp.
You know what? Very scalable, and they're starting to build a customer base. So let's
and
pay
then
attention.
At 4:05, Steve Hawkins, the CEO of Horizons ETF, which is the purveyor of the HMMJ ETF,
marijuana ETF.
And then Adamo Barbieri is going to be here with a little segment on cannabis recruitment. And throughout this segment, we will be responding to and reading your questions and comments online on the YouTube chat group, but only those which are pertinent, relevant, respectful, and what else? What else do they got to be? Smart.
How about germane?
Germane. Good word. What's that word mean?
Relevant.
Oh, and the word of the day today?
Contemporaneous.
Contemporaneous.
We're contemporaneous. We've existed at the same time.
How about that? Not only that, we're on the same show. Does that make us dually contemporaneous?
We're duplicit.
Duplicitous. Now that implies that we're both up to something.
Yeah.
We're up to no good.
In other words, hidden agenda, maybe.
Hidden agenda. Well, everybody knows we're not to be trusted.
HA.
Hell's Angels?
Hidden agenda.
Oh, hidden agenda. I was going to say. Boy, that's a motorcycle club that I've never been invited to join. And actually, no, that's not quite entirely true.
Yeah.
But anyways, I didn't join.
Okay.
I was driving a Kawasaki at the time, and that was not well appreciated by the assembled members. Anyways,
I've got
good bunch of guys to go shooting with.
I've got Aurora up here.
Yeah.
And this is in the U.S. Maybe we just take a quick look at this because...
Oh, Aurora. That was my trade of the day yesterday.
I'm just going to point this out. It's a little more bullish on the U.S. chart, so maybe there's been a currency adjustment. But we've had these two candles here suggest a pretty major bottom as far as I'm concerned. And now, if we can close just anywhere around here, it's a bit of a mini breakout. So it may count to at least 620 US. It's currently 543. Just saying.
Oh, that would certainly make put a smile on my face.
Put a smile on your dial.
Yeah. The question is, 1 billion shares out, how high can the company go? If it goes to $45 a share, that's $45 billion. How much
is that going to happen? 45 billion?
Do I look like somebody who's qualified or stupid enough to try to predict the future of a share price?
Weed's up $4 today.
Weed is up $4. You mean marijuana on the street generally is up $4 a gram, or you mean weed, the stock on the stock market, is up $4 a share?
I'm not going to tell you what I think or what I mean.
Well, that's no surprise there.
Weed is we ed.
So that's like multiple versions of yourself.
Yeah, we ed.
Ricky Gerwitz is here, and she's got some news for you.
Thanks, and here are the headlines moving markets today. The Bank of Canada is maintaining its key interest rate at 1.75%. The Governing Council says the policy interest rate will need to rise over time into a neutral range to achieve the inflation target. Liberty Health Sciences Inc. announced that Vic Neufeld and John Cervini will be stepping down from the board of directors effective January 31st, 2019. The board is continuing its search for 2 qualified and independent board members. Aphria Inc. has completed its previously announced acquisition of CC Pharma GmbH. CC Pharma is a leading distributor of pharmaceutical products, including medical cannabis, to more than 13,000 pharmacies in Germany, as well as throughout Europe. Aphria has also completed its first shipment of medical cannabis to Shoppers Drug Mart. The Flowr Corporation has also signed a medical cannabis supply agreement with Shoppers Drug Mart. The term of the supply agreement is 3 years with a 2-year renewal term. The Supreme Cannabis Company Inc. announced that it has received conditional approval from the Toronto Stock Exchange to graduate from the TSX Venture Exchange and list its common shares on the TSX. Final approval of the listing is subject to the company meeting certain customary conditions required by the TSX. Curaleaf announced that it has opened its 21st Florida dispensary in Bonita Springs. The company has the largest cannabis dispensary footprint in the U.S., with 39 dispensaries across the country. Kushco Holdings Inc. reported its financial results for its first fiscal quarter of 2019 for the period ending November 30th, 2018. Highlights include a loss of 10 cents per share and a net income loss of $8.18 million. Revenue was up 186% year over year to $25.3 million, exceeding the previous quarterly high of approximately $20 million. Cash was $3 million as of November 30th, 2018, compared to $13.5 million as of August 31st, 2018. This morning in the Superior Court of Los Angeles, California, the Inception Company's founders, Brent Cox and Omar Mungalji, who hold a significant stake in MedMen's management company, filed a complaint against Adam Bierman, Andrew Maudlin, and various MedMen Enterprises entities for alleged breaches of fiduciary duty. Cox is a former board member of MedMen, serving in that role from March 2016 to March 2018, and founder of the Inception Companies. The Inception Companies is a private, opportunistic investment firm based in Los Angeles and London. MediPharm Labs Corp., a research-driven cannabis extraction business, announced that over the last week, members of its board of directors and management team have increased aggregate shareholdings following the exercise of 5.5 million options. Together with prior holdings, total management shareholdings increased to over 39% of issued and outstanding common shares in the capital of the company. The company also announced that the board of directors has approved a grant of stock options under its stock option plan to purchase an aggregate of more than 5 million shares at an exercise price of $2 per share for a 5-year term expiring January 8th, 2024. And that's your news for today.
So George is looking for a couple of new qualified directors. What do you think, Ed?
What do you think? Let's throw a hat in the ring. We'll come as a team.
We'll be a team of tag team directors, Ed and Jim.
Yeah, and we'll talk about their stock a lot on the air.
I don't think that's good. I
Why?
don't think you'd want directors who are going on the air. Well, because it's conflict of interest.
There's conflict of interest.
But
everything.
we're not on the board of
think
directors.
Trump has conflicts of
I
interest?
can tell you what, George would not be interested in having you and I as directors because we talk about the stock on the air.
Oh, he'd rather us. Yeah, he'd rather us.
No. You can't be so blatant in your attempts. Like, what does he think he is? Like, he's going to put like a congressman and a former prime minister on the board of directors and pretend they've got deep experience in the cannabis space? No. George is a man of integrity. He would never do that. I found it interesting that they caused the resignation of the Saruya and Vic.
What?
Yeah, Liberty Health. In the news segment, had you been paying attention, Ed, you would have seen that Vic Neufeld and Michael Saruya resigned from the board of directors of Liberty Health. That's why he's looking for new directors. Which is interesting. That's Aphria's.
Oh, I just thought maybe they opened up a couple of spots.
No, they did. But the interesting thing is Aphria still has the right to purchase 104 million shares of LHS. So board representation is neither here nor there. I guess it's a step in the right direction, but I'm going
to put up your index. I want to see how the index is doing today, because yesterday they were in the big one. There was 8 down and 2 up, and it was a sort of that kind of a day.
A mixed bag.
Mixed bag.
You guys carry on.
Is somebody talking? What?
What's going on, Ed?
Well, I'll tell you.
I'll tell you. There's something coming up next. I have no idea what it is because I don't have a sheet of paper.
You've got to see this. You've got to see this. I'm telling you. Watch this. This is going to be a little different than yesterday. I'm telling you right now.
All right.
Oh, Canopy's only up 12%. Aurora's up 7. Chronos up 5.
Whoa.
Aphria up 5.
Whoa.
Hexo. Green Growth Brands up 9. Every stock in the index today is up.
Now, Ed, I don't know about you, but if I was a betting man, I'd say it's time to go short.
Yeah, you know what?
What about
my biggest mistake has always been going in a little too early. Let it run its course a bit.
Yeah.
Look to see when it stops going up and then short it.
Yeah.
It might be Friday morning.
Yeah.
Or maybe Monday morning.
Hey, is Ben here yet?
Where's Ben?
Oh.
Hey, look it up. Look at this. The Midas Letter is
Had
up
a couple
12.
of Chardonnays at lunchtime there, Ed? Or what?
Had a few.
Can't seem to speak.
Had a few Sapporos.
Sapporo.
Well, it was sushi.
Honorable Sapporo, brand. Look at Tilray's, 82, down $1.15. We're going to have Brendan Kennedy on the show again soon. We just heard from Tilray. They're going to be here. Violence Grow is going to be here next week. Tyler Booth is going to be joining, or Tyler Robson, rather, Tyler Booth. Vivo. You know, it's high time we had Barry Fishman back. I don't know why. There's a note to Chase Producer. Get Barry Fishman on the show. Look at Whalen Group coming back strong, up 8 cents to $1.27. Full disclosure, I own a bunch of shares, and they're a client. Or no, actually, yeah, they are a client. Weed MD up 11 cents, $1.49. Look, everything is on fire today.
What? Yeah.
Except MedMen.
MedMen's not on fire.
Cureleaf. MedMen is on fire, but in a negative way.
Yeah, it's on fire.
It's literally burning.
Throw some water on it, quick.
Exactly. Let's see what we want to look at right now. Portfolio manager. All right, so MedMen is down. MedMen's down 37 cents to 408. So that lawsuit is definitely being viewed as a not frivolous undertaking, which is understandable since the former board member and former large shareholder is the guy conducting the lawsuit. MedMen just keeps getting, whacked with the ugly stick. Doing that financing, having it halved by Canaccord and discounted, it's like, Jesus.
Can't trust back over 8.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there's action going on here. You know,
Charlotte's Web, 17.20. I sold it at 17.
Really?
Yeah, you know why? Because I know it's going to happen. It's going to go down, and I'm going to buy it back at 12. That's a prediction.
Okay.
Is that a prediction? That's not a prediction.
Kronos up 83 cents to 17.22.
Wow.
The shorts are probably thinking,
Wow.
why would I ever listen to that jackass talking about short selling?
Yeah, exactly. Here's the interesting thing is that the Midas Letter large cap index is up 12.47%, but the Midas Letter small cap index
is up 20%.
24.5%. So this is interesting that the
smaller
as per
ones.
Charting Man Dan's discourse yesterday.
Yes.
The tier 2 and below stocks that are not listed on multiple exchanges have a better sort of beta to whatever the news of the day is. Well, what is the news that's driving the sector today?
But usually it's big money moving in. Maybe it's short covering. Maybe the shorts are getting so nervous that they had to rush out because there's big short positions in all these.
So there's no macro catalyst in the cannabis world.
Do you know of one?
I don't know of one.
And you know, I was agreeing with Dan yesterday when he was saying the big ones are not getting the attention, and yet today, look, and this is not a criticism. This is how difficult the markets are.
What?
The markets are so difficult. Just when you think you've got it figured out,
whack,
kicked in the
keister,
kahunas.
Ouch!
Ahoo!
Owie.
Did you know that Zowie is a word? Yeah, we talked about this 6 months ago.
Of course, Zowie is a word.
Yeah.
Didn't we invent that word?
Zowie.
One of our own
What do you know what
words?
Zowie means? It means Zowie.
What does Zowie mean?
It means like, holy shit.
Whoa!
Well, yeah, that means that's Zowie.
Woo!
Just say Zowie.
Zowie.
There you go.
Yeah, that was a theme from a few weeks back. So you know, you had an interesting chat with
Vikas.
Yeah,
Vikas.
Regent Vikas.
Vikas Ranjan.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, you didn't yet. You're going to. You're going to have an interesting chat.
Oh yeah, well,
3:45.
You know what?
What about our Benjamin? Where's he? Oh, I see. Boy, just a regular mishmash going on here today. I love it. 60 seconds. 1, 2. No, just kidding. Constellation Brands, Class A New York Stock Exchange shares down $20.42 or 11.85%.
What is?
That's what Errol Potok is saying. STZ is at 151.92 USD, which is down $20.42 or 11.85%. Interesting comment, Errol Potok. Thank you for that. Why? Tell us why you think that is. Market manipulation, says Jermaine H. Canopy has 13.6 million square feet licensed in Colombia. Yes, and? Okay. Here is a fascinating little tidbit of information.
Time for our question of the day. We want to see just how much you know. Let's talk about Bob Marley. He was a huge fan of marijuana, a massive hit maker, and brought reggae to the masses with the best of Bob Marley and the Wailers. Unfortunately, he died in 1981 of melanoma. That's a form of skin cancer. He was only 36. And his final words to his son Ziggy were, "Money can't buy you life." So here's our question. What was buried with him? Was it A, a Bible, B, a bud of marijuana, C, a soccer ball, D, his Les Paul guitar, or E, a ring given to him by the Prince of Ethiopia? The answer to this question is coming up shortly.
Anyways, I've got a special guest here with me now. Colin Fisher is the CEO of StableView Asset Management. Colin, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
Now, Colin, StableView Asset Management is principally interested in the Canadian technology landscape, and so that's a refreshing break from our focus on cannabis. So tell me, how is the technological landscape from an investor's perspective going into Q1 2019 in Canada?
Well, I think, it like anything else, got a bit of a spanking in the last quarter of last year.
Yeah.
a lot of what I'm seeing is starting to recover quite significantly. I think, you get the cascading effect of stock price goes down, you run into tax loss selling, and then that really starts to punish it into the tail end, and you have the pile-on of the fact that a lot of liquidity typically dries up in the tail end of last year. So, or of any year when you're getting into tax loss selling area. So a couple of the stocks that I've been looking at are starting to rebound nicely. A lot of the time you get in technology, if the companies are performing well, you can splice this out in a whole bunch of different ways, but at the end of the day, if you have real companies doing real things and making real money, and the market writ large writes off, unless they're in nosebleed valuations, they will typically recover relatively quickly. So
is that what happened in Q1 so far? What are we,
8-9 days in?
Well,
but
the cannabis space, everything that had sold off by 50% is now, a lot of it's back up 10, 15, 20, 30%.
So a number of the positions that I've been in, a couple of them are up in the 20s, 15, 20s.
Oh, okay.
But it's all relative, right? It depends on where you're at. You're getting, some of the hangover effect of, the Apples of the world starting to show, that they're having growth problems in China. They're starting to show that some big macro events are going against them.
I saw LG reported 80% drop in revenue.
Yeah, so
that's pretty huge.
Yeah, so a lot of these consumer elements, right? So, in the big tech has parallels to credit. So if the consumer's starting to get tapped out, some of these more consumer electronics, they don't have recurring revenues built in, right? So they don't, that like an LG is typically more of a B2C type product or type of company, a lot more consumer facing. Same thing with Apple, a lot more consumer facing. So the more consumer facing, the more sensitive to the overall macro environment, including things like credit. Our consumers tapped out. If you're getting into that type of thing, then the bigger companies are typically more sensitive to that. So you're going to have the Apples, the LGs, and whatnot. Whereas if you have companies that are typically prevalent in the Canadian landscape, which are B2B companies, like 99% of all of our tech is B2B.
Right.
We're not a big consumer. We're just not big. We're like 35 million Canadians across the country. So as a consumer marketplace, we're microscopic. So the vast majority of the technology that is addressed in Canada is servicing businesses. And so the B2B typically has less volatility in their revenues, particularly if they are contractually based or they're a recurring nature in their contracts. So that's a lot of what I invest in is primarily. Okay. It doesn't mean you don't get a spanking if the market's getting spanked with everything else. It's just that typically the recovery is a little bit quicker as there's a little bit more meat on the bones for post any sort of
So if technology is leading the sell-off in the broader market, which is the case, arguably.
At the larger cap, yeah.
And that has the effect of taking all segments lower. How do you position yourself for a year like 2019 where there's this huge risk of recession, given all the macro political? You've already got technology leading the broader market to the downside. The interest rate question is still not exactly a given. So what do you become more attracted to? What do you become less attracted to in such an environment?
Well, thematic, I don't know if I'm thematic necessarily per se, but if I was to say what is it that I'm looking for commonality in the type of companies that I'm investing in, typically what I'm looking for are the types of businesses wherein you have a service that is not going to be cut off, like you are tied to that, you need that. I used as an example, and I found an exception to the rule, but let's say you were renting a pacemaker. Let's say pacemakers were heart as a service.
Okay.
Right?
Lifespan as a service.
Lifespan as a service. And you had to pay a monthly rental on that.
Okay.
My suspicion is that everyone with a pacemaker is paying their pacemaker bill. They need that pacemaker if you want to kick around.
Because they can cut it off if you don't pay?
Well, I mean, if you want to go into some dystopian universe, yes. But the idea is that if you need a pacemaker to stay alive and you actually want to stay alive, then you would pay that bill because it's so critical to you.
Right.
The funny thing is I use that as an example, and then literally the next day I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and her aunt, great aunt, decided not to go and get the battery changed in her pacemaker, and she passed away a few weeks later.
You're kidding.
But she was like, I'm done. I can't, because they keep kicking you back. Like if you're about to start fading, then the pacemaker kicks in and you're back to life, even if you don't want to be. So they were saying, oh, you got to replace your battery. She's like, no, I don't. And that was it. So,
and then replacing your batteries is not just like open a slot and stick it in.
No, 100%. No.
It's like under the gun and under the knife.
Yeah. So what I was saying is
sorry to hear that.
Well, no, but it's a proof positive that even really good business models like a pacemaker rental service on a monthly basis isn't going to have a 100% recurring revenue from your client base.
That's true. That's true, I guess. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of foofara around artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah.
And I'm curious as to what's your sort of exposure, take on the sector as it's emerging.
So AI is, I think one of the, so, you get these stories that engage the animal spirits of the investor. This is so exciting. What are the capabilities? It was like the internet's in, in the early 90s, early 2000s, everyone was, what could it do? Mm-hmm. If you go back to the 2000s, you have to remember that there were companies that were, it was a travel agency with a website. And the idea was, you could access the world. Anyone could order off. Of course you could, but the technology, the infrastructure, all of the things that surrounded the ability to make a sale wasn't there. So that company had $300,000 in revenues and was worth $1 billion. So what it does, like we had the blockchain. Blockchain was, all of these capabilities, and then the crypto surrounding the blockchain and all of these elements. The excitement levels there, AI, in my opinion, is one of the more realistic and current, like contemporary solvers of problems. It's a real business right now that can solve real business problems. I think it was Scotiabank that bought a chatbot, and they bought the chatbot for the purposes of collecting, so they could put that chatbot, and if you owed them money and you were delinquent, well, now you have,
pop-up box to annoy you.
Well, no, I was thinking more like a Terminator, right? Like, it doesn't sleep, it will never tire, it's coming after you at all times, it is coming to collect your dough.
Huh.
And when you look at, so when you look at whenever you look at an application of technology, you're trying to figure out where is the fat part of the problem that has the highest cost and the greatest amount of benefit if you solve that problem. So a lot of fintech companies, many times, I think I mentioned this the last time, is if I'm making your shirt and the material of your shirt is $200 and the buttons are 5 cents and I'm solving a problem on your button, like, I can make them half the price,
right.
It doesn't materially change anything. In the instance of when you look at the problem of, for example, lending, and you have a lot of lending tech companies, and when you get into that, you're going, okay, well, the big problem is in the collections. The big problem is employing people to collect and do the administration around that. And so what I think is you look at AI for that application is massively important. So I think AI is going to be one of the category killers. The problem is how do you invest in it, right? And this is part of the issue, is that you get all this excitement. So you hear all of these big money going into these areas. And I liken it to, I'm going to use a slightly less evil sounding example, but if you have, I'm trying to think of one that's, okay, I'll just use the one. The concept of disruption and chaos. If you take a whole bunch of pit bulls and you put them into a pit and you say which one's coming out, it's a random. You have no idea. They're all big. But if you have a pit bull in a big pit full of chihuahuas, there's a high probability. So the first one's chaotic. The first environment's chaotic. The second one is disruptive. So in the AI world,
for the chihuahuas.
Yeah, because if you assume, for the Troy, if you assume that the entire industry,
Who's that guy?
that's going to, and from a technology point of view, that can happen from time to time. So AI took a long time, but the computing power and the GPUs and all that ability for that processing power now is real and live, and they can do amazing things. So I think AI is massively useful. The issue is going to be, I think there's going to be more hype around the application, and a lot of the winners are going to be, we'll never see them. It'll be companies that have, like Scotiabank, for example, it's going to drive down their costs. Same thing with blockchain. The big thing about blockchain is driving down costs initially. So to find a company in that space is going to be difficult because most of them are germinated in the private market, and for you to get your mitts on them, or somebody else is going to buy them out well before they become public. So, I would imagine the vast majority of your viewers are playing in the public markets. There's going to be AI type things coming out, but a lot of them aren't going to be, in my estimation, really investable. A lot of them are going to be more hype than they are going to be, far more sizzle than there is steak.
Okay, well that's interesting, Colin. We're going to leave it there for now and come back to you again next week. And thanks so much for joining me today. Right now, we're going to look at Cannabis Recruiting with Adamo Barbieri.
The number of people employed in cannabis-related jobs back in November of 2018 was 10,400. That's an increase of 7,500 from the previous year. The average hourly wage for employees in cannabis-related jobs is $29.58, which is higher than the national average of $27.03.
All this talk about wages and making money, maybe I should ask for a raise.
No.
Well, that was a quick answer. Maybe it's time I find out a little bit more about the cannabis job market because I may be finding myself jobless really soon.
Okay, so Allison, thanks so much for doing this. Can you tell us a bit about what your company is and how it helps people, find jobs within the cannabis industry?
Yeah, you bet. So at Cannabis at Work, we are a recruiting firm and also a training organization that focuses exclusively on the cannabis sector. And so it's really our service to connect great people into the cannabis sector, both in terms of just making general connections, but also connecting them with the right employers that are looking for individuals with their skill sets.
So can you speak to the wide range of new jobs that are now available within the sector? Like there's so many that are now available that never existed because it's legal now.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the last year and a half, we've seen a lot of roles, a lot of the growth within the licensed producer segment. And so that tends to be a lot of roles around quality assurance and cultivation. So really that production environment, as well as we've seen a lot of the corporate service roles build out as well. So human resources and marketing, accounting, IT.
More specifically, 58% of cannabis-related jobs in Canada were in agriculture, while the other 42% ranged from educational services to healthcare and retail.
But what we've learned in the last couple of years with our salary survey is that the cannabis salaries are really quite mainstream. So that's kind of the punchline. I think that people expect either that their salaries might be lower paying because of the kind of history of the black market with cannabis, or that because there's so much hype and growth in this industry that the salaries are going to be really inflated.
With all this hype around the cannabis sector, I wanted to dip my toe in the water just to see how it felt. So I took to the internet and landed myself a job interview with Apollo Cannabis Clinic.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for seeing me today.
Thank you for coming
Nice to meet
in.
you, Adamo.
Tanny Raz.
Tanny.
Pleasure.
That's a great name, Tanny.
Thank you. By any chance, did you bring a resume with you?
I have something better than a resume. And this is something you're going to remember forever. Just a headshot, black and white. I don't have a color printer. That would have been a better. And this is a mustache picture. I'd cut my girlfriend out of this one. But you can keep it.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing this in.
I'm just happy to be here.
So why don't I tell you a little bit about Apollo?
Please, because I feel like this isn't going well. So just tell me, maybe let's talk about what this clinic is, and maybe we can find a role for me.
Apollo Cannabis Clinic is not only a research organization, but we're also a medical cannabis clinic.
Okay.
So we pride ourselves in doing the research, because that's initially how everything started, so we can empower, so we can provide the knowledge needed, because there's so much in the space that we still all need to learn.
So in terms of roles available right now,
Yeah.
what do you have available?
So currently one of the main roles is a customer service patient care representative.
Okay.
We also have a marketing manager role and a biostatistician, as well as we have one more role, which I don't think is the right role for you.
Don't count me out just yet.
So one of the roles that I think that would fit well with your personality and your passion is the customer service patient care representative.
Okay, and what does that entail?
So it's about helping patients along the way. So answering phone calls, helping patients get booked in, providing customer service, and we take that very seriously here.
So as a customer service representative, what if I don't have the necessary cannabis experience? Can I learn that from you guys here? Will you help me?
Absolutely. We provide full training. If you have cannabis knowledge, it's great. If you don't, it's not a problem. You'll learn everything you need to know. So high quality customer service is
high quality.
It's incredibly important.
You guys get it?
So allow me to go on.
So I'm so sorry.
Do you currently have a job placement? Are you employed anywhere?
I mean, this is kind of a job, I think, right, James? Is this a job? Oh, he's gonna fire me. Let me ask you something.
Sure.
How is this interview going?
You know what? Not bad at all.
Actually, is this one of your better interviews?
Well, it's every interview is special in its own way.
I don't know. All right, I'm not gonna get a job here, am I?
Okay, so they did not offer me the job. I don't know what happened in there. She liked the mustache, that's for sure. Needless to say, there's a ton of job opportunity within this emerging cannabis sector. For Midas Letter Live, James, I'm begging you, please don't fire me, man. I have a dog. I need this paycheck. Please. I mean it. Don't cut away from me, Mark.
Wow. We will have an answer to the trivia question, but first, Andrew Muroff is here. He's the CEO of Strainprint. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Andrew, tell me, what does Strainprint do?
We are a data and analytics company in the cannabis industry. We are one of the very few companies that actually tracks data on patient use and patient outcomes, and we have the largest data set
Cannabis big data.
Cannabis big data. So there's a lot of data that's on the supply side. We're on the demand side, demand and use side.
I see. So if I am a cannabis retailer, I would want to license this data to give me an idea of where the trends are in the marketplace?
So competitive intelligence, business intelligence, if you're on the medical side, treatment guidance. It's everything from strain efficacy, product formulation. You know, what am I missing in my product set that people are asking for, or how are my products comparing to other people's products?
Oh, so you're the guy who kind of finds out what the people are smoking.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's not smoking. A lot of times it's other delivery mechanisms.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of vaping.
What is the favored method of delivery for Canada?
Well, we can't actually answer that question that broad. We can. We shouldn't answer that broadly. We should answer it by demographic, by gender. We can narrow it down to.
Okay.
We know that women vape more than men. Men tend to smoke more than females.
Who smokes more, men or women?
Men smoke more than women.
Okay.
Typically it's younger men, 50 below. 50 and above are vaping more.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people are taking their flower that they're buying from legitimate sources, and they're making their own edibles.
Oh, is that
so
right?
We're seeing a lot of that.
Oh, a little home baking.
A lot of home baking. A lot of home baking. And a lot of people are buying from outside of the legal system as well as buying from in the system too.
So according to your data, what percentage of cannabis in Canada is sourced from illegitimate sources?
What I can tell you is that in our system, so I can only tell you what my data shows. I can't tell you what the broader industry shows, but in our data, what it shows is 95% of the people who are tracking in our system are using legal sources, and about 20% are also using other products from outside of the system or creating their own derivative products from that.
Interesting. And now, I'm very curious about some of these points, but are people more attracted to high potency THC oriented products, or is there more of a mix towards people wanting lower THC, higher CBD, or what is the actual sort of breakdown in your data in terms of what demographic likes what level of potency?
So I'm going to take it a little bit further. So I'm going to say there's 450 active components in any strain of cannabis. And the key ones are THC and CBD, so those are the ones you hear the most about. But there's a whole whack of minor cannabinoids, expanded cannabinoids, and then terpenes, which are an ingredient that actually is evident in more than just cannabis. So it's understanding how all of those things interact together. So what I can tell you is for most and by the way, it varies by indication what people are using, and that's the whole purpose of our data, is to help people find what optimal chemical profile works best for them, not the strain name.
Right.
So we really don't care how the producers tell us the strain. We care what's the chemical profile that people are using. So to answer your question, most people are not looking for really high THC.
Really?
They're not. They're looking for a combination.
Does not surprise me.
I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, too much THC and you're on the couch, right?
Well,
regardless
exactly.
of whatever other ingredients are in it.
Right.
People are looking for a solution to a symptomatic state, right? Do I have anxiety? Do I have fibromyalgia? Do I have epilepsy? And so what we're finding is different genetics in people and also different demographics in people need different things.
Interesting. So is the end goal of all this data collection and analysis, are you going to be able to one day say, okay, you're this blood type and you're this sort of demographic profile, and here's the condition and strain of that condition you have, so here's actually the perfect combination of ingredients for your CBD treatment, or rather cannabis-oriented treatment, which will work perfectly?
So we're not at the genetic phase yet. We're starting to incorporate that testing in, but what we can tell you from an observational perspective is we can actually tell you that the tool, the app that we have, our first product, is a product that helps people track their outcomes so that they can figure out what strains are working best for them for the symptom they're treating. And in aggregate now, we can start to look and we can say, if you're a 49-year-old male treating fibromyalgia, working during the daytime, needing to be creative, this is the optimal chemical profile for you. And these are the 10 products that have that.
Interesting. So I imagine, it's funny. So as a lifelong consumer of cannabis, there was never any thought about, the entourage effect of the combined cannabinoid experience, especially with the terpenes and flavonoids, which apparently have some physiological modification effect as well. So now that all this information is coming to light, it's kind of like you think, geez, I maybe should have been smoking more of a cannabis dominant strain instead of the wheelchair weed that has basically caused me to spend 20 years locked in a dark room playing drums. And so this is intriguing to me, because ultimately this is going to improve every individual's relationship with cannabis, be it recreational or medical in nature.
That's why we exist.
Wow. Is this a public company?
It's not private.
I see. Is it going to be a public company?
No intention to be private. Public. There's first of all, access to capital for data companies is not a problem, but more importantly, it's not really a reason for us to be public right now. It's really meant more for those companies that don't have access to capital other ways and need big capital for CapEx expansion.
Right.
I've run public company before, and
right.
If you're an operator of a public company, it's a great valuation boost, and it's great for public notoriety, but you have to actually run a business, and it's tough to run a business quarterly.
Right, you bet. Interesting. So then, is the purpose of Strainprint to actually produce this fundamental service that will be part of the cannabis ecosystem everywhere?
So it is now, today. I can tell you we have 3 products in market. We have our app, which is a patient-focused app that helps them to figure out what strains work best for them. We have a community portal, which is a private and secure community portal that is plugged into the app as well. Those are 2 consumer-facing products that drive the data into our Strainprint Analytics platform, which is a platform that allows us to monetize the anonymous data. So we have LPs, clinics, large pharmacy chains, government, a lot of people who subscribe to our data today through our Strainprint Analytics, and they use that data for either business intelligence or treatment recommendation or for product formulation.
Wow, fascinating. So this is a tool currently in use by medical practitioners to help patients zero in on what the exact appropriate medication might be.
And help physicians and clinics be more engaged with their patients and track the patient performance so that they can provide better treatment guidance and better ongoing treatment recommendations. So you can start to see your patient's performance in real time on our platform, and you can see if there's a drop off. You don't have to wait till the next clinic visit before you address it.
Interesting. Now, so there's a broadening, ever increasing comprehension at the clinical level of exactly what are the effects and interrelationships between the endocannabinoid system and the various CBDs and cannabidiols and all of these things. From where you sit, I would think that you'd have a really great bird's eye view on the things that are showing so much potential for problems that might not be part of the popular discourse at this point.
Yeah, and we're also, yes, and on top of that, we're starting to use the platform, the full ecosystem platform, the three pieces, to run clinical trials. So our first clinical trial is an endometriosis study that's in partnership with a group out of Israel, and together we'll be running a very large study. We'll take the data that we have today on endometriosis patients, we'll fine-tune what the study is going to be, we'll recruit from our community platform for the participants in the study, and at the end of the day, we will come out with a formulation that can be productized and will be approved in both of those markets.
Wow, sounds fascinating, Andrew.
Thank you.
We're going to come back to you in due course and get an update on this situation. It's really interesting. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the answer to our most trivial of questions.
All right, are you a reggae fan? Earlier in the show, we asked you when Bob Marley was buried, what was buried with him? Well, the answer is all of the above. That's right. A Bible, a bud of marijuana, a soccer ball, his Les Paul guitar, and a ring given to him by the Prince of Ethiopia. He knew his time was up, so before he was buried in Jamaica, he specifically requested these objects that were near and dear to his heart go with him into the earth. We don't know what kind of bud made it into the casket, though. And if you knew the answer to this question, then you are a huge Bob Marley fan.
What did he get buried with?
You don't know?
Worms.
You're not the Bob Marley fan, man.
I'm a fan of the herb.
You're a fan of the herb, man, but you don't know what Bobby Marley was.
I was thinking of changing my name to Herb.
Herb.
Herbie.
He had a great name, that would be Ed. There's a hot chick, this jet flowing through the air.
What do I do now? Oh, on the back.
What do you get buried with?
I say a ring.
I say a ring.
No,
I say
it's Les Paul guitar.
Soccer ball.
Les Paul guitar. The Bible.
All of the above. He's buried with all of that.
Jesus, we should have known that.
Didn't you know that?
The answer was right there.
There's a
I saw it, by the way, ACB. I'm not letting this go.
The air.
Hey, 7:30.
Hey?
What? Is it 7:30?
7:30?
No.
How's that for a pick, eh? I know.
Hey, why is Tilray backing away here? Because the paper's coming. They moved it up, and now...
But the paper's a week away. What's the date today?
A week away, a week away, a week away.
A women up, 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 a women up.
You're
going to
be... Huh? Okay, let's...
We are...
I had a great interview yesterday.
You did so.
Yeah.
And?
Yeah. This is a FinCo company.
FinCo?
Could be $1 billion company. That's what I think.
Really?
Could be.
Did you want to go to that right away?
God? No. No. Yes.
All right. Well, so fact, you had Vikas Ranjan here from Mint Corp.
Today we have with us Vikas Ranjan. Vikas has done a number of things in the financial world. He's founder of Gravitas Financial.
Yep.
And Gravitas Financial is the largest shareholder of a company called Mint Corporation.
That's right.
Now, Mint Corporation, when I think of Mint, I think of money printing. And if you've got a money printing machine, I want to know about it. No, all kidding aside, Gravitas is the largest shareholder. You're also an executive director.
That's correct.
Of Mint.
Mint, yeah.
And you've been involved with Mint for about 4 years.
Just over 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, and you told me quite a bit about it a couple years ago, and I've been watching it because I thought it was a great.
Yeah.
So tell us in general terms. Tell us about Mint. What do you do?
Sure. First of all, Ed, thank you for the opportunity to talk about Mint.
Yeah.
We have known each other for a long time,
Yep.
and I'm very excited to be on the show and talk about Mint.
Thank you.
So Mint is a company, Canadian company listed on Toronto Stock Exchange, Venture Exchange.
Yes, MIT is the ticker.
The ticker. Has been a public company for a long time now.
A lot longer than 4 years, right?
A lot longer than 4 years,
Yeah.
yes. It had different lives,
Yeah.
I would say. Gravitas got involved in 2014 as an investor, and we also brought in other investors, and very quickly at that time we realized the potential, but we also found the company was having troubles at that time. So we had to really step in a big way and restructure the company, and we became the largest shareholder. And last 4 years we have been building this company in partnership with our local partner in Dubai. So Mint today.
Dubai is
yes.
one of the Emirates. Right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Part of United Arab Emirates, which has, I believe, 7 emirates.
Obviously a financial center in its own right.
Yes, absolutely. And Dubai is a very diversified economy. It's a city-state, probably about 5 million population, I believe. United Arab Emirates is a pretty unique country. Has about 10 million population, but most people are expats in the country. So what does it mean? That they come from different places. Only 1 million are Emiratis. 9 million are probably from different countries. And half of those, or approximately 5 million of those people, are blue-collar workers, migrant workers.
Okay, and would they come from like Africa or something like that? Or?
No, predominantly they come from Indian subcontinent. So India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Philippines also, and all the shiny buildings and all the things which you see.
So does Dubai pay for their transportation and everything? And
the employers who employ them.
Yeah.
So these are the workers who built the city of Dubai, and for that matter, a lot of places within UAE. They come on long-term visas and work visas, and they live in Dubai and other places. And in most cases, they are unbanked migrant workers.
So they don't have a bank?
No, they don't have a bank.
Hard to comprehend that in our world.
Absolutely. In Canada, everybody has a bank account,
Yeah.
and so you take that for granted, right?
And you say there's probably a couple billion people that are really underbanked.
More than 2 billion people on the planet are underbanked. And there's a huge opportunity to service them, to bring them into the financial circle.
And this is where Mint comes in.
100%. So Mint is a company which has designed a system. First of all, Mint, if I have to describe Mint, it's a globally certified mobile payments company. That's the underpinning of this company. And now we have attached a very versatile, robust, mobile, digital banking type system, almost like a bank type system. Now, Mint is not a bank, so I want to qualify that.
Yeah, it's not a bank.
It's a technology company.
It's a FinCo, right?
It's a fintech, exactly.
Yeah, fintech, yeah.
But Mint application, Mint app has been launched, which basically enables Mint to offer value-added services to unbanked people. But everything starts with Mint providing what we call the core service, and which is a payroll service, cashless way to pay these migrant workers who do not have bank accounts. How do you do that? So you have to have a system to pay them, and Mint,
So they have a bank account right on their phone, basically.
Phone or a physical card, just like you have a bank card.
And you have one of those cards, right?
We have the cards we issue effectively become the salary card, payroll card for these employees. They are either MasterCard or card issued by Union Pay. So they are acceptable wherever these companies are functioning.
Right.
So what happens is that Mint will go and get an employer. Let's say the employer has 10,000 employees, and Mint will get the contract and account. Then Mint will provide the payroll service. So every month, a month end, the employer will send one wire to Mint's escrow account for entire salary of 10,000 people. And then Mint will do the calculation, and Mint will load these cards. So every migrant worker of this employer company will get a Mint card, the payroll card. And now the next phase of Mint is really to enhance the functionality of this card, as well as offer that on a mobile device.
Now I understand you about a couple of months ago you had about 400,000 users.
Yes.
And you've added to that, and in fact you made an announcement today, didn't you?
Oh yes, today's a good day for Mint. We just announced additional 100,000 cards on the platform. It's a major customer win for Mint.
Yeah.
It's one of the major financial institutions which was providing payroll service to more than 100,000 migrant workers, and they have agreed to move to Mint's platform.
So you're now up to about 600,000.
Just over 600,000, yeah.
And they're paying you
just
annually.
About 10. So the business model, if you may, how does Mint make money? First of all, Mint solves a very important business problem for these employers. By law, they are mandated not to pay cash as salary. So Mint provides that under the regulation.
So they can't pay cash to these people?
No.
They have to pay them
non-cash way,
right?
But they don't have bank accounts, so they need a service.
They
like
need
Mint,
a mobile,
right? Yeah. So Mint provides them this cashless solution. So Mint offers this payroll service to employers, and employers typically pay around $10 per card per year fee.
So 10 times 6 is you're talking like $6 million roughly.
Yeah, exactly.
Revenue.
Yeah, I know.
But very, very scalable.
Very scalable.
Like we're at the very first inning of a baseball game here.
Very, very first year. I would say, the bottom inning of the baseball game,
Yeah.
So what is the game effectively? Now, when Gravitas invested in this company, it wasn't the payroll itself which was the attraction, right? From day one, we knew that once you have the payroll, then you can offer all sorts of services. And that was the attraction. So when we took over and we looked at the platform, it wasn't ready. So we invested heavily in building this platform, technology platform, in collaboration with our local partner. And over the last 5 years, approximately $40-50 million has been invested in building the whole ecosystem.
That's basically your Gravitas's involvement, $40-50 million? Well, so you've put your money where your mouth is.
Yes, a big portion of that. I wouldn't say that all of that money was Gravitas's investment. We also brought some institutional investors, mainly at that time they came as debt investors, but converted recently into equity of Mint, a big part anyways. So now that we have built the technology stack, now that we have built this mobile-based platform, we will be able to offer all sorts of value-added services to these migrant workers. Just imagine the power in their palm of their hands, right? It's like you can use this mobile device and do lots of things. So
you can buy tickets. You can do anything, right?
Yeah. Starting with loan.
So they don't need a bank account, really.
They don't need a bank account. Effectively.
So what does that say for all the other banks? Maybe I should get rid of my bank account. There's nothing in it anyway, except overdrafts.
This segment of the population is not catered by banks anyways.
Right.
Banks will not open bank accounts for migrant workers who earn below a certain threshold. So banks are not interested anyways. What we are doing is giving them a very high-end banking type service platform using the mobile device. So, now that you have your Mint app loaded on your mobile phone, using that app, you can find an ATM. You can check your balances. So, the salary which we are loading on your card, Mint payroll card, also is reflected on the mobile wallet now. Now, using that, you can top up your mobile phone in that part of the world. You prepay for your mobile phone. You can attach an overdraft facility, just as we do in the banks here.
Yeah.
If you want to send money back home, which is a big part of what these migrant workers do, send back money home. You can do that with a few clicks, So now I would qualify by saying that not all those value-added services have been made live.
Right.
This is the next phase of Mint to make those
You mentioned a company that's based, I think, in Kenya?
Yes.
And you said this would be a good company to compare to in terms of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I would say that a good benchmark, aspirational company, which revolutionized the mobile payments
And is this
market.
a public company?
No, it's a private company, I believe. It's a very famous company called M-Pesa. which is...
How do you spell that?
M-P-E-S-A. M-P as in Peter, E-S-A. M-Pesa.
M-Pesa.
Yeah.
Okay.
About 10 years ago they started.
But once you get this base, it's like when I can even, like, I'm not a very technically literate guy, but it's amazing now. I pay per parking now on my phone. I mean, you can do anything with once you get into this thing.
Yes.
So you're really rubbing shoulders with some really big.
Yes. In terms of the scalability of this platform, once you have built it, it does not matter if you service 100,000 or 500,000, a million, or 2 million, or 10 million.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to scale up your infrastructure, for example, data centers and things like that.
But the heavy lifting's been done.
Has been done, exactly. So in case of Mint, the heavy lifting has been done. And now the migrant worker is just one part of the story, right? It's not just individuals who are underbanked or unbanked. It's also the merchants who are underserviced and
they don't get services from banks.
That's right. The small merchants I'm talking about.
I'm going to just throw up this chart here. I want to put up the chart, just make a couple of quick comments, and then we can carry on. So there we got a 2-year chart, and I see that this is not a quiet stock. This beginning of October of 17, it sort of started moving from about 10 cents up to 30, backed off into the 20 level, and then ultimately hit 47 cents.
That's right.
Now there must have been was there a false start here, or what was it?
Yeah. So if you look at the last 4 years chart, you will see. And
I'll just want to add, there's about 200 million shares, and Gravitas owns half of those shares.
Yeah, just about 53-54%.
So you're definitely in control of this.
We are in control, yes.
And you're not charging a fee to run this, are you?
No, funny enough, when Gravitas took over, and one of the Gravitas' co-founder, my partner Vishy Karamadam, who acts as the CEO of Mint, has been the CEO since we took over the company. We never charged Mint any fee. We ran the company pretty much, on low cost, and Gravitas provided the board and the management. Talk about a classic merchant banking private equity type approach without taking advantage.
Sure.
Every share Gravitas owns, we paid for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so your major shareholders. So are you basically only in Dubai right now? Or is that? I guess you're everywhere where your customers are.
No. So right now we are in United Arab Emirates, which means that employers could be anywhere within UAE, United Arab Emirates. Dubai is the center. That is where our main operation is. It's a fairly sizable operation. We have about 80 plus people in Dubai. Mint very quickly is becoming a very prominent fintech company in the region.
Yeah.
And for good reasons, right? Mint is an ecosystem. Mint is a payments ecosystem. Not only Mint can issue cards, it can also process its own transaction. And that's big.
Yeah.
Which means that it puts us into big league,
I'm starting to understand the potential.
That's right.
Scalability and so revenue streams. There must be multiple revenue streams.
Potential multiple revenue streams. So the key part was that let's get solidified the customer base, right? So now we have 600,000 and growing. We are still far off. There are 5 million migrant workers just in UAE alone. And in the neighboring countries, there are another 25 million migrant workers. And beyond that, the potential is limitless. So once we have proven the model in the UAE, which is what we are doing right now, we can take our technology stack and go anywhere.
Yeah.
And all we need is to partner with a bank or a telecom company in different regions, and it's like a plug and play.
Yeah.
We light up new line of businesses for these partners, and we don't have to invest. Our partners do.
Sure. I remember when we had lunch and you told me about this, and I was watching it, and I saw it start to move, and I thought, I think I missed the boat here. So just before we close, I want to ask you, so right now you're at 600,000.
Yes.
And I mean, if you can't put a number, but I'd like to sort of say, in 3 years from now, would you like to have 1 million? Would you like to have 2 million? I mean, you'd like to have 10 million.
Yes.
But I mean, realistically, how's this the growth is going to start to accelerate.
Yes,
isn't it?
yes. So yeah, you are absolutely right. I mean, our aspiration is to have at least 1 million cardholders in the UAE alone. And right now, average revenue is about $10 per card per year.
Yeah.
We want to ramp that up to $100 per card per year. Now, that's a simple math.
$100 million company
$100 million
with just 1 million.
Exactly, revenue company. And it's a very profitable model because once you have built the cost base, your cost base does not go incrementally in the same proportion.
Right.
We calculate internally a very high net margin, 50 to 60% net margin. So this could be a substantial company in the UAE alone. But yes, over 3, 4, 5 years, as we expand beyond UAE, can we have 5, 10 million cardholder subscribers?
Why not?
Yes, why not? Why not?
Vikas, we're gonna leave it there.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on because I'm personally interested.
Yeah.
I haven't made an investment yet. Would like to have you back in a little while to.
Would love to.
We can monitor your growth.
Yeah.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Vikas Ranjan, Mint Corporation.
Well, that's interesting, Edward. Thank you for that. But right now, I've got returning for the first time in 2019, Steve Hawkins, the CEO of Horizons ETF. Steve, welcome back.
James, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Steve, the Horizons ETF is, it's looking like it was a safe place to be relative to a lot of other stocks in the sector, in the cannabis sector. What's your outlook for 2019 in terms of what you're liking in the ETF?
Well, I mean, I think this is sort of a continuation of the same story that we've had over the past month. We saw huge equity market volatility, and we actually saw outside of Aphria, we saw a nice started uptick in the cannabis stocks. It's almost like a volatility or inverse volatility play to the equity markets. So we're going to see equity market volatility, we hope, settle down here, but we're seeing a continued nice little run in the cannabis space right now, especially with all the continued short-term news, new research analysts coming online with big firms like RBC, Piper Jaffray, picking up Canadian stocks, U.S. stocks. RBC now is a bank saying that they're going to get involved in the investment banking side of the deals in the space. That's all very, very continued positive news. And right, as we know, this has been an extremely news-driven sector. The short sellers on Aphria, I think, are getting screwed right now, which is great, I think, for the industry. And I think people not overreacting to those types of stories anymore. I think some people will hopefully have learned a little bit of a lesson here, and we'll start to see volatility come down a little bit, I think, but we're going to continue to see a nice little slide upward in the sector.
So the macro, we've been sitting here this afternoon looking at the market. The market's on a tear. We're trying to find a macro catalyst that we can point to say, well, this is what's driving the market. We can't find anything, but from what you're saying, it's actually a combination of these catalysts in sort of the upper levels of the major banking sector that are too high for us to see, and so we don't really know what's going on, but that's a reasonable explanation.
I think it's one of the drivers, but I think people going into year end were still a little jittery of what was going on, and then they saw huge equity market volatility, and marijuana stocks were a safe haven. Right. Even though there's a lot of intraday volatility in a lot of names, we were seeing some nice flows into our ETF, especially because we provide a broader, diversified exposure to the sector. And I would not have wanted to own Aphria personally when it dropped by, almost 100%. And but I would, we were on the ride on the way down, but we were on the ride on the way up. So it's, it's been up. I think it's up 80% since from its lows already in less than a month. I mean, that's great, I think, for the sector, and just news generally what's going on with Canopy. With respect to their stores and they're working deals out. Aphria closing the Germany deal. Financials started actually being reported from a real-time perspective. Maybe some of them are slightly under evaluation, but of expectations. But they're still coming in very, very positive on a year-over-year basis. You have one of the lead analysts in the U.S. now saying that they think they underestimated U.S., Canada, and global medical marijuana sales. I mean, that's also a nice little catalyst. I mean, all these nice little kicks in the butt, I think, for the sector are great.
Interesting. So then, if you were a betting man, would you bet that this positivity that we're seeing in the whole sector is likely to continue. Even like I'm looking at the S&P today, it's up like 0.2%. So it's not like correlated to the broader market. And I'm looking at the broader market, it looks like there's a lot more risk in there, especially as it pertains to Brexit and China-US relations and interest rates, et cetera. But the cannabis market's just saying, like, yeah, that doesn't pertain to us.
That is absolutely true. Like none of those macro factors affect the cannabis space, which is very, very interesting, and why you can actually use cannabis as a hedge against general market activity right now. So, for me, from a shorter and longer term perspective thing, I mean, we've seen a nice little rise here, like 20-25% in the past month, which, we were expecting last time I was on the show in earlier December. We were starting to see a nice little consolidation phase, and I said, look for a nice little breakout right now. Boom, it's already happened. Right. So what's going to happen from here? I'm hoping that, there'll be continued positive news, and is that going to drive it higher? Maybe. I think we might consolidate again a little bit here before we see another nice little jump higher. But I still continue to see 2019 as we're going to see some nice uptick in the cannabis sector. And I think more specifically, especially in the US names that are listed in Canada, I think those are relatively undervalued to the Canadian companies. Mm-hmm. And so I think if we're going to look for more specific upside, I think that's where I would be focused on a short-term basis. Right. But I'm still very, very positive about the long-term prospects of the cannabis sector, especially in Canada.
Yeah, you bet. The U.S. MSOs that are listed in Canada have typically been characterized by underperformance since their IPOs. Yep. And their prices, the share prices themselves coming into the market as an IPO have been, eye-poppingly high relative to where Canadian companies tend to start. Now, granted, the U.S. markets, as each one is essentially a distinct market the way things are far more numerous and far larger each and of themselves. So when you say that you think they're undervalued, do you think they're undervalued relative to the size of their markets or relative to, on a dollar for dollar basis, Canadian stocks?
The latter. So I think when you're looking at it just on a pure fundamental basis, from a quantitative perspective, right, I think the Canadian companies are a little bit more overvalued than the U.S. companies, especially after this little run. But I think that spread is narrowing, and it's going to continue to narrow. But a month ago, that spread was significantly more. Even though we've seen a nice run in Canadian stocks, we've seen a pretty good run in the U.S. stocks. But on an overall basis, I think that spread is narrowing, but I still think U.S. stocks are quantitatively undervalued relative to Canadian companies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so HMMJ does not invest in Canadian companies operating in the U.S., though. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. Correct. So, I mean, looking at the performance of the U.S. ones relative to the Canadian ones, has that been sort of turned out to be a blessing in disguise in that you haven't been able to participate in those big overpriced IPOs that came out and crapped the bed out of day one?
In some cases, for sure. But it also hindered us when you have companies like Tilray who did their IPO at $17 and then traded up to $195 kind of thing, right? And we weren't able to buy it coming in after the IPO market because we're not as nimble as an active portfolio manager can be. But when you still look at it on a long-term basis, people were shorting Tilray. Tilray's price has been extremely volatile. A lot of people got out of Tilray, at $150, at $100, even down to $75. We continued to own the stock, and we've been able to appreciate, see the nice appreciation in the value once we had averaged in on a stock price basis. So, active management can have some short-term positives things for you, but owning a nice passive vehicle like HMMJ, even though it doesn't own companies operating in the U.S., still is giving us a really nice broad exposure to the marijuana market, especially since the Canadian companies are now operating outside of Canada. The Aurora deal that closed in Germany. There's lots of global expansion going on with respect to marijuana generally and the cannabis space, and so we're getting global exposure out of our Canadian companies. Again, we talked about this before, but this is where this is the great thing about Trump. He's given the Canadian companies a leg up on the world over the U.S. companies because they can't get out of their states.
Right.
And we love that from a Canadian company perspective.
You bet.
But I mean, the U.S. company investors are not seeing the benefits yet. So.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Steve. Well, that's great perspective as usual. We'll leave it there and come back to you in a week or so. And thank you very much for joining me once again.
Thanks again, James.
And now I have a question for you. Did you know?
Babies and pot? A hospital in North Carolina was noticing a huge uptick in the number of newborns testing positive for marijuana in their urine. This could raise all kinds of worries. But the truth came out after an investigation in 2012. You see, it turns out that some baby soaps are the actual culprits. Formulas from Johnson & Johnson, CVS, and Aveeno were causing fake positives despite having no traces of marijuana in them. So, sorry folks, no babies were getting high.
What?
So how is it that a bar soap can generate a positive result from a cannabis test and yet there's no cannabis in it? How is that?
Magic.
Magic. You don't say.
Yeah, there's magic.
Boy, is there any companies we can invest in that are, in
Like
the magic
that magically
business?
go up?
Well, that have magic as their business model.
Big day, eh?
Where? Oh, you're talking about the stock market. Jesus, Ed, who wants to talk about the stock market? So the HMMJ Horizons Cannabis ETF. It's interesting. So it's all Canadian companies, none of whom are operating in the USA. That's protected their volatility. I think from somebody who wants exposure to the sector without the volatility, that's not a bad way to go.
Yes.
Yes. How do you, Ed, what does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Eyes.
Damn you. Damn your eyes.
You only asked me that 6 times.
I know. One of these days I'm going to get you. I know it.
Okay.
Hey, what about Ben Smith? Do you know who Ben Smith is?
Yes.
And what does EYES spell?
Eyes.
Not to be outsmarted by the likes of me. Okay, well, that's fine enough.
Aphria up 52.
Aphria up 52.
Look
So
at
that's pretty good.
ACB backing off a bit.
Hello, Ben.
Ben.
Hey, guys. Hey, James.
Hey, you got a new camera by the looks of things. You're in focus.
Yeah, it looks like the camera thing was indeed the issue here. So technical difficulties have been fixed.
Now, Ben, just to jump right into it here, you have been making some fair comments, to say the least. I mean, in particular, I saw that there was a lot of appreciation for your sentiment that Canopy was going to start moving again. And boom, here we are, and it's up $5, 12.
Ben told me when you were away, we were chatting. He says, "Keep your eye on Canopy.
Yeah,
it's getting loaded for a move here."
Wow.
And there you go. So you wait 2 weeks. So I know it's a long time, but.
So Ben, let us ask you, what is the story, Morning Glory, behind the move in Canopy today?
Well, the big catalyst, of course, is the Piper Jaffray recommendation of Canopy stock. Of course, that went a long way. But some of these recommendations from these big analysts won't necessarily move the stock to this degree unless it's primed. And I think you've been seeing over the past 3 or so weeks that the stock has been base building. It's been forming higher lows on the hourly, and it's been sort of grinding higher in a channel. So it was primed and loaded for that someone to come out like Piper and recommend the stock and then just sort of send it into orbit. It broke resistance on the top of the channel and it just kept flying today. So that was the catalyst. Big Wall Street analyst initiating coverage on the stock and getting more analysts into the fray.
So do you think that Piper coming out with a recommendation like that is the sort of vanguard of larger banking and financial management companies coming into the cannabis space in a public way?
Yeah, I think so. I think in a way it was big because they're one of the major analysts on Wall Street, and the fact that they're coming in now and not waiting for the States Act to pass just shows that more players on Wall Street are getting into the game and not waiting for the States Act or some other legislative events to arise before, throwing their names in the hat. So you're just seeing more adoption and more people wanting, investment banks wanting to get into the space, which is ultimately a good thing.
Mm-hmm. 10 minutes ago, I looked at the Midas Letter index for the large caps. They were all green, and it was up 12%. Do you think? I mean, they're all up. Is Canopy leading them, or is it just Canopy is part of the move, but not necessarily the reason why the others are moving? I think it looks like money's going back into the sector.
Yeah, it looks like it. I think Canopy ultimately is the straw that stirs the drink in the sector. So the fact that they moved, drags all boats above, up with it. I think the move in Aurora Cannabis was very interesting as well. Yesterday, I wrote a piece that although some news pieces came out on Bloomberg, on the Globe and Mail, that they actually missed revenue estimates. They only did so. There was only 2 estimates out there, and both of the estimates were 60 million and 75 million. They were like 25% away from each other. So I think people recognize this fact and bid Aurora Cannabis up as well, realizing that no one really knows what's going on in terms of Bay Street analyst estimates. Even Aphria, with earnings coming out on Friday, you have 3 estimates out there. The consensus, the median estimate is 28.3 million, but the low end estimate is 20 million and the high end is 35. So some of these estimates don't really make sense, and I think people realize that in Aurora, and it got swept up in the Canopy euphoria that happened today.
Interesting. So, do you see any other macro catalysts in the sector that are likely to either continue to drive the positive sentiment that we see now, or is likely to cause a reversal?
Yeah, most definitely. There's catalysts on both ends of the spectrum. On the Canadian side, you have edibles coming up in Q3. So there are some companies like Hexo Corp that are positioned to capitalize on that. Of course, Canopy is another company well positioned to capitalize on that. South of the border, you have the States Act, and I don't think that this is really getting enough attention. If that passes, of course, federally, and the state's law and federal law will be in unison, essentially, and then that will drive more investment banking into the sector, because banks won't be afraid of flaunting money laundering laws or anything like that. So a lot of American companies won't need to go to Canada to raise capital anymore. That's a big event for the U.S. MSOs. So yeah, I would say those 2 are the big drivers. Also on the Canadian side as well, you have more retail outlets opening up as we go. In April, 25 outlets at least will be opening up in Ontario, and that's big because I think sales have been stunted to a certain degree by the messy rollout because everything's only been available online. But once you get the retail going with that and get some of the branding considerations going with that as well, I think it's really going to drive sales and make the potential of post-legalization sales really shine through.
Mm-hmm. In the U.S. MSO universe, we're not quite seeing the same level of enthusiasm as we are in the Canadian operator space. And given your comments about the States Act, does that sort of jive with what you're saying there, Ben, that it's underappreciated in the context of a catalyst?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, some of the moves in the United States with the MSOs have been quite large lately. Acreage, for example, has gone up almost 100% off the lows in about 3 weeks. A lot of the big ones are up 30, 40%. So I think some of the moves down there have been sort of equivalent to what has happened north of the border. So I don't know. We haven't seen a lot of press in terms of what's coming up with the legislative aspects of the States Act. But once a bill is tabled and that starts to gather momentum in Congress, I think we're going to hear more about it and people will get more excited about it. But right now it's sort of, something that's on the radar, but it's sort of dormant at this point.
Mm-hmm. All right, Ben, that's a great update for us. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you soon.
See you, Ben.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thank you.
Interesting. The the whole sector is kind of like
Chronos. Yeah, I'm looking at some of these indices that you've created. 26% up. One's up 26%. The big one's up 13%. The venture cannabis is up 16%, and the Midas Letter CSC is up 17%. This is a banner day.
Yeah, it's pretty. We haven't seen a day like this since like late.
Well,
I guess August 20.
We haven't seen a day like this since today.
Yeah.
You're supposed to laugh at that. Today we saw it.
That's hilarious, Ed. Ha ha ha. So we saw that Fire had received conditional approval to list on the TSX.
Fire. That's
Supreme. The Supreme Cannabis Company. James Watson has a question.
Why is Tilray down? I mean, it's an interesting. Tilray's up, and the rest of them are down today. Tilray's down, the rest of them are up. Okay.
Yeah. I guess that's called bifurcation there. That's your bifurcation there at that moment. It's funny, you see.
I know what furcation is, but I don't know what bifurcation is.
You're a student of markets. I consider myself more a student of language. And the one thing that I've noticed
I would have never known that.
Out of every bull market that comes along comes with its own crop of esoteric, overused jargon.
Right.
So in the .com era, it was paradigm shift. Suddenly everything was a paradigm shift. Every talking head in the universe was using the term paradigm shift. In the real estate market, it was bubble. That was when
bubble's been used though.
No, actually prior to the real estate
tulip bubble.
But they didn't call it a bubble. When the tulip market
they didn't have
crashed,
bubbles back then.
Well, they had bubbles, but they didn't correlate them. They called it a market crash.
Little globules of
floating suds.
Floating suds. And somebody
sud spheres they called them.
Sud spheres.
No, but in the current era, it seems like bifurcation is one of the big ones that's part of that.
And what about fake news?
Well, fake news is just so fake.
It's fake news.
Well, but what's fake news?
Everything. Pretty well everything.
Everything is fake news.
Well, because everything only happens the way it happens when it happened. To try and describe it later.
Well, but if the New York Times says that some guy walked into a market and blew himself up in Marrakesh, do you tend to believe that, or do you tend to think that's fake news?
No, you know what I'm trying to. The gist of it is somewhat accurate, but to describe it perfectly is impossible.
Well, we're not talking perfectly. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it news or is it fake?
Yeah. You said that. You know that he said, she said.
No,
stuff.
but my point being that if Breitbart, whatever they
Bart
call
Simpson?
that, that Stephen Bannon thing, if that guy comes out and says that, Donald Trump says that he is going to do A, B, or C, then I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second because A, the credibility of the man delivering the statement has been called into serious question on a daily basis by his own statements. Secondly, the publication has demonstrated in no uncertain terms that it is grinding an axe in favor of the Republican/Trump agenda. So therefore, that is fake news. So here's my observation about fake news. The only fake news is coming from the people who are crying fake news.
Okay. Let me think about
no
that.
Arguments there.
I'm going to think about that.
Wow, that was easy. Hey, Ed, here's why you should buy the drinks and dinner tonight.
Okay.
Beautiful. Wow. Ed, have you written your will out lately?
No.
No. Here's why you should put me as your primary beneficiary.
Why?
Well, you caught me off guard there. I was expecting an okay.
Just say okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Woo.
Well, you know what? The time is winding down here.
Time is winding down. What are you saying?
Well, I'm saying that
it's time for wine?
Winding down.
There's so much I wanted to talk about. The price of gold. Where's the price of gold at today? What is that got to do?
You know, every commodity on my list of commodities is up today.
Okay, so what's gold? Price of gold.
Gold, I think, was $12.94.
So here's the thing. GT gold comes out with a monster hole.
A monster hole.
1,000 meters of a gram per ton.
Yeah.
What does the stock do? It shits the bed.
But it went up sharply first.
Well, for like what, 20 minutes?
But you know what, I don't know where they are in terms of the news flow. Is that it for news now? Like the drilling season is ended up in that part of the world.
Well, not necessarily. Well, not if you're on a lake. On a lake, the drilling season's just getting started. Because you need the lake to freeze before you can brag a drill out there.
Yeah, but I'm talking about where they're drilling. It's pretty hostile.
Where are they drilling?
Golden
Hostile.
Triangle.
Golden Triangle?
Yeah.
The Golden Triangle is hostile? That just doesn't make any sense.
No, it's a hostile environment.
Ooh.
Climate. Hostile climate.
People with guns.
No, not people with guns. They have, I was going to say, they're civilized. They only use
It's time to get the hell out of here, Ed. You're buying the drinks and you're putting me in your will. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow.